The stars had always been a silent audience to the life of the galaxy. For most civilizations, they were distant points of light, beautiful, unchanging, untouchable. Yet for the people of Eloria, the stars were not distant or indifferent. They were the last hope. Eloria had once been a world of balance. Its oceans shimmered like liquid glass and its forests stretched endlessly, whispering in the wind. Cities of crystalline towers reflected the golden light of its sun, Orcs. Life on Eloria had flourished for millennia under the careful guidance of science, culture, and a deep respect for their planet's fragile ecosystem. But the sun, once steady and life-giving, had begun to behave unpredictably. Fluctuations in energy output grew more severe with each passing day. Giant solar flares scorched the atmosphere, threatening to burn forests, evaporate oceans, and make large regions uninhabitable. The leaders of Eloria knew that if the sun's instability continued, their civilization could end within months. They had tried everything within their knowledge, shielding cities with energy domes, redirecting excess solar energy, even attempts at stabilizing the sun itself. But the star's growing volatility was beyond their capability. For the first time in their long history, Eloria faced a threat that no amount of ingenuity could solve alone. In desperation, the High Council of Eloria gathered in the Grand Observatory, a circular chamber surrounded by transparent domes that offered a panoramic view of the cosmos. Councillor Lysan, a figure known for his calm reasoning, addressed the assembly. "We have reached the limits of our knowledge," he said. "If Orcs ignites beyond control our cities, our forests, our oceans, everything will be lost. We cannot face this alone. We must send a call." The decision was unanimous, though heavy with anxiety. Eloria had always been self-reliant. Their civilization had survived environmental catastrophes, internal conflicts, and even minor wars with other species, but never had they been powerless before a cosmic force. To send a message into the galaxy was a gamble. They did not know if anyone would answer, or worse, if they would be ignored entirely. Using the observatory's most powerful quantum transmitter, the Council crafted a message encoded in multiple frequencies to reach civilizations across light years of space. The message was simple, a plea for help. It included Eloria's coordinates, details of the sun's instability, and an offer of alliance and shared knowledge to any species willing to respond. Once sent, the message shot into the stars, a bright pulse of hope traveling faster than light itself. For days, the planet waited. Cities continued their daily life as best they could, but anxiety hung in the air like a thick fog. Schools taught children about survival protocols. Emergency shelters were stocked, and teams of scientists worked tirelessly to monitor Orcs. But even as preparations continued, the people of Eloria could not ignore the nagging fear. No one had replied. Meanwhile, in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy, on a planet called Earth, the message arrived. Earth was a world much different from Eloria. Its civilizations were young compared to the ancient histories of many galactic empires. Its technology was not the most advanced. Its ships were not the fastest. Its cities were not perfectly orderly. And its people had long struggled with their own environmental and social challenges. Yet Earth had one advantage that the galaxy had come to respect. Its inhabitants were survivors. Humans had endured more extremes than most species could imagine. Their history was filled with natural disasters, wars, pandemics, and conditions that would have destroyed less resilient species. Earthlings adapted, innovated, and fought through challenges that often seemed insurmountable. In galactic circles, they were often called Deathworlders, a term initially meant as a warning, but gradually it became a mark of respect. At the Earth Interstellar Command, the message from Eloria blinked across a communications monitor. Commander Elena Voss, a seasoned officer known for her calm decisiveness under pressure, leaned forward to read the content. "This is unprecedented," she murmured. The message described a civilization on the brink of extinction, facing a force beyond their control, begging for aid. The room buzzed with debate. Many of the senior officers questioned the wisdom of sending humans to help. "We don't know these people," said one. "It could be a trap. We don't even know if their technology can integrate with ours." Elena shook her head. "We don't leave anyone behind. That's what makes us human. We survive because we act when others hesitate. And right now, someone needs help. That's enough reason." After hours of deliberation, the decision was made. Earth would send a team, Not the largest or most heavily armed expedition in the galaxy, but a carefully chosen group of engineers, scientists, soldiers, and explorers, individuals accustomed to facing danger and solving problems in unpredictable ways. They were ordinary humans in many ways, but their skills, courage, and adaptability were extraordinary. The crew prepared for departure. Each member packed not only equipment but also the knowledge and experience accumulated from surviving on a planet that tested them daily. They knew this mission would push them to the limits, more than any military exercise, more than any exploration, more than any disaster they had faced on Earth. Yet the challenge inspired them. Humans thrived under pressure. It was in their nature to rise when others might falter. On the launch day, the expedition gathered on the observation deck of the Earth starport. Families, friends, and media from across the planet watched as the ship, Endurance, began its countdown sequence. Children waved, hoping to emulate the bravery of the crew someday. Scientists and engineers checked final systems, ensuring that the ship could survive the long voyage across light years of empty space. Commander Elena gave her final briefing. "We don't know who will help or what dangers await," she said, her voice steady. "But we do know this. When the galaxy ignores a call for help, we answer. When hope seems lost, we carry it forward. This is why we survive. This is why we are Earth's Deathworlders. Let's make sure Aloria sees that humanity never turns away from those in need." The countdown reached 0. The engines of Endurance ignited, casting brilliant blue light across the launch pad. The ship lifted into the sky, rising past clouds beyond the atmosphere and into the endless darkness of space. Onlookers cheered, tears in their eyes, feeling pride and fear in equal measure. As Earth shrank behind them, the crew of Endurance experienced a moment of silence. The stars stretched out in every direction, some bright, some dim, some unknown. Among them, a faint pulse of light represented Aloria's Plea, traveling the same void, but arriving with hope. Days passed in the initial voyage, each moment filled with monitoring systems, checking navigation and preparing for potential threats. The crew trained for emergencies, shared meals, and exchanged stories of Earth's challenges, learning to bond quickly despite their different specializations. Every member of the crew felt the weight of the responsibility upon them, not just the survival of the mission, but the survival of an entire species on the brink of extinction. One night, as the Endurance drifted silently through a field of distant stars, Commander Elena walked along the observation deck. She thought about the Alorians, fragile, advanced, but untested in survival under extreme conditions. She thought about her crew, resilient, bold, and ready to face danger without hesitation, and she thought about the message they had received. A simple plea, a request for help, a reminder that even across unimaginable distances, life could call for aid, and that call could never go unanswered if someone courageous enough was willing to answer. Elena whispered to herself, "We will not fail. Humanity will answer, as it always has." Somewhere across the void, Aloria waited, unaware of the small fleet of humans racing to their aid, unaware that the species they had hoped might respond, and many had dismissed their plea, was a species forged in survival, capable of facing what others could not. The journey ahead would be long, and dangers would be many, but for humanity, danger was not something to avoid, it was something to confront. And so, across the endless darkness of space, a spark of hope traveled faster than light, carried by humans who were known as Deathworlders, ready to bring life, courage, and ingenuity to a civilization that had nearly lost everything. The stars watched silently, as always, but this time they were not indifferent. Something remarkable was about to happen. A reminder that the universe, no matter how vast or indifferent, could still witness courage, compassion, and survival against impossible odds. The Endurance cut through the darkness of space, a small vessel carrying the hope of two worlds. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly, performing checks, calibrating instruments, and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. Every member understood that the distance between Earth and Aloria was immense, far beyond what most species would consider a practical journey. It was a test not only of technology but of endurance, ingenuity, and the human spirit. Commander Elena Voss observed her crew with a quiet pride. Humans had never been the fastest or the most advanced species in the galaxy. Other civilizations boasted ships that could cross light years in hours, fleets that carried armies larger than some planets' populations, and technology that could manipulate energy on a stellar scale. But humanity had something that most lacked: resilience, adaptability, and the ability to turn the impossible into the possible. The mission to Eloria would require all of it. The first days passed in relative calm, yet the crew knew the calm was deceptive. Space was never truly empty. Tiny micrometeoroids, radiation bursts, and gravitational anomalies were constant hazards. Even the smallest error in navigation could send them off course, losing precious time in their race to save a planet. To guard against this, the engineers ran simulations, tested thrusters, and monitored every system. Lieutenant Rian Tavares, the ship's chief engineer, was particularly focused on the propulsion system. He had grown up in the deserts of northern Earth, where he learned to fix machines with whatever materials were available. That experience now paid off in ways he had never imagined. The Endurance's engines, though not the fastest in the galaxy, were sturdy, reliable, and adaptable. Ryan's hands moved deftly over the controls, calibrating the engines for efficiency in deep space. "She's holding steady," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Not the fastest, but she'll get us there." Meanwhile, Dr. Amina Shah, the mission's lead scientist, studied the data coming from the Elorian transmission. She noted fluctuations in the star's energy, unstable patterns that could become catastrophic. Her mind raced with calculations, scenarios, and solutions. "We need to be ready for anything," she said, showing Commander Elena her holographic projections. "Eloria isn't just facing a normal solar crisis. This star is unpredictable. We may have to improvise solutions they never imagined." Improvise. That word was familiar to every human on the crew. Earth had trained them to think quickly, to adapt, and to survive under pressure. They had faced hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and even global crises that required rapid problem-solving. Now, millions of light-years from home, that same skill would be their greatest weapon. On the fourth day of the voyage, a warning signal blared through the ship. "Micrometeoroid storm bearing 92 degrees, velocity extreme," the automated system announced. The crew rushed to stations. Shields were activated, hull integrity reinforced, and emergency protocols reviewed. The storm hit like a wall of invisible glass, tiny rocks moving faster than bullets, each capable of piercing the ship's hull. The Endurance shuddered under the impact. Ryan and his team worked frantically to adjust deflector shields, diverting power from non-essential systems. Sparks flew from a control panel when a stray particle struck a conduit. Dr. Shah held onto the console as the ship rocked violently. Commander Elena remained calm, issuing commands with precision. "Ryan, reinforce aft shields. Amina, recalibrate the sensors." Everyone else, brace for impact. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The micrometeoroid storm raged on, testing the crew's resolve and the limits of their ship, and yet the Endurance held. By the time the storm subsided, the crew was exhausted but triumphant. Every human aboard had worked in perfect synchronization, relying on instinct, training, and trust. Later, in the quiet aftermath, the crew gathered in the common chamber. Amina's voice broke the silence. "We survived because we adapted. Because we didn't panic. That's what sets us apart. Other species might have turned back, waited for help, or relied solely on technology. We use our minds, our courage, and our teamwork." Commander Elena nodded. "Exactly. Eloria doesn't know it yet, but we're coming, and we'll find a way to save them even if the universe doubts it." The next challenge came unexpectedly. A weak transmission signal appeared on the sensors, drifting through space near their route. It was a derelict alien ship, silent and lifeless. Most species would have avoided it, fearing traps, radiation, or worse. But humans were different. Curiosity and courage drove them forward. "Let's take a closer look," Elena decided. The ship approached the derelict carefully, scanners analyzing every inch. It was ancient, its metal hull scarred and worn, engines cold for centuries. Boarding it required nerves of steel, but the crew moved in with confidence. Inside, the corridors were dark, filled with silence. The walls bore markings of a long-dead civilization. Amina's team discovered data archives, still partially functional, detailing the collapse of the ship's homeworld. Their sun had behaved unpredictably, much like Horus, and the civilization had failed to survive. The logs contained warnings, survival attempts, and desperate messages that had never left their planet. "This is what could happen to Eloria," Dr. Shah said quietly, her eyes scanning the records. We need to understand their mistakes if we are to prevent the same fate. Lieutenant Tavares found the ship's engineering core surprisingly intact. With careful work, he managed to extract a portable reactor, a piece of technology that could assist their mission. Not as advanced as we expected, but it's something we can use, he said. Every human aboard felt the weight of responsibility increase. They were not just observers, they were problem solvers, rescuers, pioneers. Days turned into weeks. The journey through the void became routine but never easy. Each crew member adapted to life in microgravity. The endless silence and the pressure of knowing another civilization's survival depended on them. They trained together, shared stories from Earth, and forged bonds that would be crucial when facing the dangers ahead. At night, when the stars stretched endlessly around the Endurance, the crew reflected on the mission. Humans had always looked at the stars and wondered what lay beyond, but this was different. This was not exploration for curiosity alone, it was a journey to save life itself. Each passing light year strengthened their resolve. Eloria was not just a planet. It was a test of humanity's courage, ingenuity, and the very essence of what made them survivors. On one particularly quiet shift, Elena walked the observation deck alone. She gazed at the distant stars, imagining the tiny pulse of light that represented Eloria's plea. "They don't know we're coming," she whispered. "They don't know what humans can do, but we will show them. We always do." The crew's journey was not without strain. Small disagreements flared over strategy, equipment use, and resource management. But every argument ended with compromise, discussion, and the shared goal of survival. Unlike many other species, humans could face conflict and still unite when it mattered most. This unity, born from diversity and tested by adversity, was their greatest strength. 1 week before reaching Eloria, another challenge emerged. A gravity anomaly near a black dwarf threatened to pull the ship off course. Traditional navigation systems failed to calculate a safe path. Once again, the humans relied on ingenuity, using calculations based on Earth's old space theories combined with on-the-spot adjustments. They plotted a course that allowed the Endurance to pass safely. Every success bolstered their confidence. The crew knew that whatever awaited them at Eloria, they could face it. As the planet came into view, a small blue-green marble in the distance, the crew felt a mixture of awe and responsibility. Eloria's cities shimmered faintly under the unstable sun, its forests and oceans glowing like jewels. But signs of distress were visible even from orbit. Massive storms raged, forests showed scorch marks, and massive solar flares danced across the horizon. Time was running out. Elena gathered the crew in the command center. "This is it," she said, her voice steady, full of authority and inspiration. "We've crossed light years, faced dangers, and survived when others might have failed. Now we face the real challenge, saving Eloria. We cannot fail, not because we want recognition, not because we seek glory, but because lives depend on us. Humanity has a history of survival, and that history starts here with this mission." The crew nodded, determination shining in every eye. They had come through storms, space hazards, and the unknown. Now they were ready to face what no one else dared. The stars had watched silently for eons, and now, for the first time, one species, humans, was racing through the void, not for conquest or curiosity, but to bring hope where hope had almost vanished. The universe had cast its doubt, but humans had answered, carrying courage, ingenuity, and the unbreakable will to survive into the darkness. The journey through the void had prepared them. What lay ahead would test them even further. But humanity's history had proven one thing. When faced with the impossible, humans adapt, endure, and triumph. Eloria's fate rested in hands forged in survival, and nothing, not storms, not danger, not the indifference of the stars, would stop them. The pulse of the distant planet's plea grew stronger in their minds with every passing moment. The time to act was near. The humans of Earth, the so-called Deathworlders, were about to prove that the Endurance emerged from the dark reaches of space, entering the orbit of Eloria. From above, the planet looked fragile, beautiful, and in danger. Its oceans sparkled under the unstable light of Orcs, while vast forests stretched across continents. Yet beneath that beauty there were signs of distress: scorched land, flickering energy grids in the cities, and massive storms moving unpredictably across the surface. The crew of Endurance stood at their stations, gazing at the planet below. After weeks of travel, facing the emptiness and hazards of space, this was their first real view of Aloria. The planet's beauty was awe-inspiring, but the evidence of imminent destruction sharpened their focus. Commander Elena Voss felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This mission was no longer about travel or survival. It was about life. Dr. Amina Shah leaned over the planetary sensors. The sun's instability is worse than we anticipated. Horus is fluctuating more rapidly, and some regions of the planet are already experiencing catastrophic solar flares. We need to act quickly if we want to stabilize it. Lieutenant Rian Tavares adjusted the ship's orbit. We'll need to deploy stabilizers from orbit, but the planet's atmosphere is turbulent. We have to be precise. One wrong move and the equipment could be destroyed before it's even installed. Commander Elena addressed the crew. Remember, Aloria has technology and knowledge we can learn from. Our task is to combine their expertise with our adaptability. They may not know it yet, but humanity thrives in situations others consider hopeless. That's why we're here. The humans initiated contact with the Alorian authorities. Holographic images flickered to life inside the command center of Endurance, showing the Aelorian Council in their high towers, shimmering with crystalline structures and delicate energy fields. The Aelorians looked startled, anxious, and relieved. "You have come," one counselor said, her voice trembling slightly. "We did not expect anyone to answer our plea. Most species ignored us. Why did you come?" Commander Elena smiled gently. "Because we do not ignore a call for help. You are in danger, and we believe that every life matters. We are humans, and we are trained to survive and to help others survive." The Alorians were silent for a moment, clearly unaccustomed to a species so fearless, so determined, and so willing to act without hesitation. Then the counselor nodded. "We welcome your assistance. Time is short. Horus's fluctuations threaten our world now more than ever." The humans immediately began assessing the situation. Engineers and scientists worked alongside the Aelorian experts to design a strategy to stabilize the sun's energy output. They determined that a network of orbiting stabilizers could safely regulate the solar flares, but installing them would require precise coordination, bravery, and creativity. The plan was ambitious and the risks were enormous. As the first stabilizer units were prepared for deployment, the humans noticed the sun's activity escalating. A massive flare erupted, sending a wave of energy toward the planet. The Aelorians' protective system struggled to contain it, and the humans knew they had little time. Lieutenant Tavares coordinated the deployment. "We'll have to manually guide some of these units. Automation won't survive the turbulence. It's risky, but it's the only way." Engineers suited up and prepared to exit the ship. Commander Elena led the first team, moving carefully through the turbulent orbit. Sparks of energy from Horus's flare danced across the void, illuminating their path. The stabilizers, heavy and complex, required precise handling. Any miscalculation could destroy both the equipment and the crew. Meanwhile, Dr. Shah monitored energy flows from the control center, calculating adjustments in real time. The Aelorian scientists marveled at her rapid computations and practical approach. Unlike their civilization, which relied heavily on automated precision, humans could improvise, make decisions in the moment, and take bold actions when the situation demanded it. The first stabilizer was guided into position successfully, anchored to the orbital array. A wave of relief washed over the human crew, yet there was no time to celebrate. The sun's flare intensified, and additional stabilizers were still to be installed. Suddenly, a violent surge struck one of the units. Sparks flew and the stabilizer began to drift away. Lieutenant Tavares acted instantly, using the ship's thrusters to adjust its trajectory. At the same time, 2 human engineers aboard tethered themselves to the unit, correcting its orientation. The Aelorian observers gasped. They had never seen beings face such immediate danger without hesitation. "Steady. Steady, now," Tavares shouted. With precise coordination, the stabilizer locked into place. A wave of energy pulsed across the orbiting array, beginning the process of stabilizing the sun's output. The humans had done more than install machines. They had shown the Aelorians that courage and adaptability could match advanced technology. The Aelorians began to understand that the humans were not just helpers. They were a force capable of overcoming dangers no other species dared face. As the deployment continued, storms on the planet's surface intensified. Cities flickered with energy failures. Forests shook under violent winds and rivers swelled. The humans, from their orbital positions, coordinated with teams on the ground, creating a synchronized operation between space and planet. It was a ballet of science and courage, requiring every skill the crew had honed over decades of survival on Earth. On the planet's surface, the Aelorian forces worked alongside the humans, learning quickly. Humans taught them techniques to reinforce energy shields, stabilize critical infrastructure, and monitor the sun's unpredictable flares. The collaboration was unlike anything the Aelorians had ever experienced. They had relied on technology for centuries, but the human approach, creative, bold, adaptive, opened new possibilities. Hours passed, and the sun's flares began to show signs of stabilization. The combined efforts of humans and Aelorians started to slow the most dangerous energy spikes. Commander Elena watched the displays carefully, knowing that even a small miscalculation could undo all their work. "Keep focus," she reminded the crew. "This is the turning point. Every adjustment matters." Finally, after a tense sequence of maneuvers and adjustments, the orbital stabilizers achieved a stable pattern. The sun's energy output began to smooth, reducing the immediate threat to the planet below. Cities flickered back to life, forests calmed under reduced flare activity, and rivers flowed steadily once again. Eloria was safe, for now. The humans and Aelorians shared a moment of quiet triumph. The Aelorian Council sent a message to the Endurance, their gratitude deep and sincere. "You have saved us when none would come. You have shown courage, ingenuity, and determination beyond anything we imagined. We owe you our lives." Commander Elena smiled, though she knew the mission was far from over. "We did this together. Your knowledge, combined with our experience, made this possible. Eloria's survival is a shared achievement." The Aelorians looked at the humans differently now. The so-called primitive species had not only arrived when others refused to help, they had taken command of a situation that could have destroyed the planet. The humans' courage, adaptability, and teamwork had turned desperation into hope. As night fell over Aeloria, the crew of Endurance reflected on their accomplishments. They had navigated the dangers of space, faced unpredictable phenomena, and now stood ready to assist a civilization on the brink of destruction. They had proven that the human spirit, honed by survival on Earth, could overcome challenges that even the most advanced species might avoid. Commander Elena addressed the crew in the command center. "What we've done here shows that survival is not just about technology or strength. It's about courage, creativity, and determination. Humans survive because we face the impossible, and today we have made a difference. But our work is not finished. Aurus is stable for now, but the planet will still face challenges. Together we will ensure that Aeloria thrives long after this crisis passes." The crew nodded, understanding that their mission had grown beyond mere assistance. They had become teachers, protectors, and symbols of hope. The Aelorians, once doubtful and anxious, now looked to humans as examples of what a species could achieve when guided by courage and willpower. As the Endurance prepared to descend closer to the planet, the stars around them seemed to hold their breath. Across the void, humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as observers, but as saviors. The journey through space had tested them, but nothing compared to the impact they had just made. The mission's success would be remembered by Aeloria for generations, and somewhere in the minds of the humans a quiet thought remained. This was only the beginning. Challenges greater than they could imagine lay ahead, but humanity had always thrived when facing the impossible. The bond between Earth and Aeloria, forged in courage and survival, was now stronger than any force the universe could oppose. The stars watched silently, yet now they were witnesses to a truth that few species could claim. When humans came, they brought hope, resilience, and an unyielding will to survive. The universe had called and humanity had answered, not with hesitation but with courage. The journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken. Humanity had arrived on Aeloria, and with them a new chapter of hope had begun. The days following the initial stabilization of Aurus were tense. While the sun's energy fluctuations had been controlled temporarily, the Aelorians warned that a massive solar flare, far larger than any seen in recorded history, was building deep within the star's core. If it erupted unchecked, it could wipe out half of Aeloria's surface, annihilating cities, forests, and oceans alike. Commander Elena Voss gathered the crew of Endurance in the command center. The room hummed with the sound of active consoles, blinking lights, and holographic projections of Orcs. "We've handled the initial crisis," Elena began, her voice steady. "But this is the real test. Orcs is preparing a flare that could destroy the planet if we don't act. The orbital stabilizers are working, but they need reinforcement. Ground teams will need to support energy shields, and our crews may have to take direct action in high-risk zones. Everyone must be prepared." The humans nodded, a mixture of focus and determination in their eyes. They had survived storms in space, navigated micrometeoroid fields, and coordinated with alien technology before. But this challenge was greater than anything they had faced. Yet humanity thrived in the face of danger. The crew understood that courage and quick thinking would be as important as their skills or equipment. Dr. Amina Shah analyzed the projections. "If we act in coordinated steps, we can mitigate the flare. We'll need to divide our teams between orbital stabilization, surface energy reinforcement, and emergency evacuation if necessary. Timing will be critical." Lieutenant Rian Tavares and his engineering team prepared the orbital stabilizers for intensive operation. Every device, every tether, and every power conduit had to be checked and reinforced. The humans moved with precision, their experience on Earth teaching them how to improvise in dangerous conditions. They reinforced weak points using materials salvaged from the ship's stores, and even the derelict alien vessel they had investigated during their journey. On the surface, humans worked alongside Aelorian engineers and soldiers. Unlike humans, the Aelorians were not accustomed to hazardous improvisation. They relied on precision, calculations, and technology. But the humans adapted quickly, combining practical knowledge with courage. They climbed unstable structures, reinforced energy conduits, and monitored atmospheric changes, all while guiding Aelorian teams through procedures they had never attempted. Time passed with agonizing slowness. Aurus's activity was escalating. Sparks of energy danced across the planet's surface, igniting storms and causing minor seismic tremors. Commander Elena coordinated all teams via secure communication channels. "Focus on the stabilizers near the equator," she instructed. "Those units are critical. Use tethered anchors and keep backup shields ready. Do not hesitate. If something fails, improvise immediately. Human adaptability is our advantage." Lieutenant Tavares and his team navigated the orbital units with deft precision. One stabilizer began to tilt dangerously as the flare approached. "We need to correct its position or it will fail," Ryan shouted. Two engineers tethered themselves to the unit, maneuvering through the turbulence with skill and courage. Sparks flew as energy discharged nearby, but they held firm, adjusting the stabilizer until it locked securely. On the ground, Dr. Shah and her team faced their own challenges. Massive solar flares sent waves of electromagnetic interference, threatening to disable critical systems. Human engineers worked rapidly, improvising manual overrides, rewiring circuits, and guiding Aelorians in procedures they had never performed. "Keep the shields aligned," Elena ordered. "Aeloria depends on every unit functioning together. We cannot afford mistakes." Hours passed, each one filled with tension. The sun's flare grew in intensity, its waves of energy threatening to overwhelm the protective network. Humans and Aelorians alike worked tirelessly, coordinating between orbital stabilizers, surface shields, and emergency response units. Every decision carried life or death consequences. Then came the moment of crisis. A massive surge of energy erupted from Orcs, far larger than anticipated. The orbital stabilizers rattled violently, some dislodged from their positions. Ground teams were thrown from platforms as energy waves shook the planet. Fires ignited in forests and cities struggled to maintain shield integrity. "Now or never," Commander Elena shouted. "Everyone act. Use everything we've prepared." Human crews rushed to stabilize the units. Engineers tethered themselves to failing stabilizers, adjusting them under dangerous conditions. Soldiers coordinated energy shields, holding them steady as the flare's waves crashed against them. Scientists guided the alignment of orbital arrays, recalculating in real time. Every action required split-second decisions, courage, and adaptability. The Aelorians watched in awe. They had never seen beings face danger so directly, without hesitation, without fear. Humans moved as if danger was part of their nature, using creativity, skill, and teamwork to survive situations that would have paralyzed most species. Dr. Shah recalculated energy flows and shouted instructions to the orbital teams. Divert secondary power to the central stabilizers. Reinforce the outer arrays manually now. Lieutenant Tavares and his engineers worked furiously, rerouting power conduits, manually adjusting positioning, and preventing system overloads. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the flare's energy surged with unstoppable force. But the humans pressed on. On the surface, human and Elorian teams worked together seamlessly. The humans' practical methods, quick thinking, and willingness to take risks complemented the Elorians' precise calculations and advanced technology. Together they formed a network of resilience, a force capable of confronting a star's fury. The flare reached its peak. It was a wall of energy, massive and blinding. Humans and Elorians held their ground, maintaining stabilizers and shields despite the overwhelming power. Commander Elena coordinated every movement, issuing rapid commands with calm authority. Steady. Adjust left array. Divert power now. Minutes stretched into eternity. Every human aboard the Endurance relied on training, instinct, and courage. They climbed unstable orbital units, rewired systems mid-operation, and held tethers against violent energy surges. On the surface, human teams guided the Elorians through life-threatening adjustments, ensuring that every shield, every stabilizer, and every conduit functioned at maximum efficiency. Finally, after what felt like hours, the flare began to dissipate. The orbital stabilizers held, the surface shields remained active, and the wave of destructive energy began to fade. Orus's violent behavior slowed, returning to a manageable level. The humans and Elorians took a collective breath. For the first time in days, the immediate danger had passed. The planet was safe for now. Commander Elena looked around at her exhausted crew. "You did it," she said softly, pride in her voice. "Not because of luck, not because of technology alone, but because of courage, determination, and ingenuity. Humanity survives because we act when others hesitate. We adapt, we endure, and today we proved it." The Elorians approached, their faces a mixture of gratitude and admiration. "You have saved us," the counselor said. "We owe our survival to your courage and skill. We have learned more from you in these hours than we could have imagined in centuries. Humans are not just survivors, they are champions of life." The crew of Endurance smiled, but they were quick to respond humbly. "We did not do this alone," Dr. Shaw said. "Your knowledge, your technology, and your willingness to work with us made this possible. Together we saved Eloria." As night fell over the planet, the human crew reflected on the ordeal. They had faced the sun's fury, the chaos of failing systems, and the threat of global destruction, and had survived through courage, adaptability, and teamwork. Every member of the crew understood that it was their resilience, honed on Earth, that had allowed them to act decisively when others might have frozen in fear. Lieutenant Tavares leaned against a railing on the observation deck, watching the stars above. "Earth prepared us for this," he said quietly. "We've survived deserts, storms, floods, and worse. Out here, those experiences gave us the skills we needed. No other species could have done what we just did." Commander Elena nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive because we face danger, adapt, and never give up. That is why the universe will always underestimate us and why we will always overcome." On Eloria, the people celebrated cautiously. Fires had been contained, cities restored, and forests survived the worst of the flare. Children peered at the sky, inspired by tales of humans who had faced a star's fury and emerged victorious. Scientists and engineers began studying the human methods, eager to learn from their adaptability and courage. And somewhere in the minds of the humans, a quiet thought persisted. This was only one challenge. Horus was now stable, but the universe was vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Humanity had survived another test, and in doing so, they had strengthened bonds, shared knowledge, and inspired a civilization to believe in hope when it had nearly vanished. The crew of Endurance had passed the crucible of survival. They had faced a star, a force that could obliterate a planet, and emerged victorious. And in the process, they had proven once more what humanity had always known. When faced with the impossible, humans adapt, endure, and triumph. Eloria would remember this day forever. Not just as the day their sun threatened destruction, but as the day humans came, fearless. With Horus finally stabilized and the immediate danger past, the humans of the Endurance and the Elorians took a collective moment to breathe. The planet, once on the brink of devastation, now glowed with a fragile but renewed energy. The sky was calm, The oceans reflected steady sunlight and the forests swayed gently in the restored winds. The crisis was over, but the work had only just begun. Commander Elena Voss addressed her crew. We've saved lives, yes, but survival is more than a single victory. Aloria will face other challenges, environmental shifts, technological failures, and even future cosmic events. Our task now is to leave them stronger than we found them. Teach them what we can, and show them how courage, creativity, and adaptability can complement their technology. The crew nodded, understanding that this was not just about equipment or science, it was about leaving behind a lasting legacy. Humans had survived Earth's most extreme environments by learning to improvise, to act decisively in emergencies, and to work together under pressure. These lessons, far beyond technology alone, could empower Aloria to survive challenges for generations to come. Dr. Amina Shah began her work with the Alorian scientists. They shared methods for rapid problem-solving, disaster response, and adaptive engineering. Humans demonstrated how to repurpose existing technology, improvise repairs, and manage multiple simultaneous crises without waiting for perfect solutions. Alorians listened intently, fascinated by the humans' ability to act decisively and effectively in situations that seemed hopeless. Lieutenant Rian Tavares oversaw the maintenance and enhancement of the orbital stabilizers. He worked with Alorian engineers to integrate the human designs into their existing infrastructure. Where the Alorians had relied entirely on automated systems, the humans introduced redundancy measures, fail-safes, and manual overrides. The lessons went beyond technology. They were lessons in thinking under pressure, improvisation, and perseverance. Meanwhile, soldiers and support teams coordinated with Alorian security forces, teaching them how to react during planetary emergencies. Unlike humans, the Alorians were unaccustomed to chaos. They had relied on calculations and automation, but humans showed them that courage and improvisation were equally vital in crises. One evening, Commander Elena walked through one of the Alorian cities. Children watched curiously as humans moved among the streets, helping to repair energy conduits and reinforce protective barriers. The people of Aloria had begun to see the humans not just as saviors but as teachers, guides, and examples of resilience. An Alorian counselor approached her. We have always believed in technology, in precision, in calculation. But your people, you rely on something more. Courage, adaptability, teamwork. You take risks when others would hesitate, and you find solutions no one else can imagine. How do you do it? Elena smiled. Humans have always faced impossible odds. On Earth, we survived earthquakes, storms, floods, and challenges no other species endured. We adapt, we endure, and we act when others might wait. That's what you're seeing. Courage is not a tool, it's a habit. And the more we use it, the stronger it becomes. The Alorian counselor nodded thoughtfully. Then perhaps we have much to learn from your world. Not just technology, but spirit. In the following days, the human teams completed their work. Orbital stabilizers were fully integrated, energy shields reinforced, and emergency protocols implemented across cities and critical regions. The Alorian people were trained in human methods for rapid response, improvisation, and teamwork under pressure. These techniques would allow them to act independently in the future, reducing their reliance on any single solution or technology. As the mission drew to a close, the humans prepared to leave. The Alorians insisted on offering gifts of advanced technology, rare materials, and knowledge databases. But Commander Elena politely declined most of the material rewards. We came to help, not to take, she said. The greatest gift you can keep is knowledge. Knowledge combined with courage. That will keep Aloria safe long after we are gone. Before departure, the Alorians held a ceremony to honor the humans. The skies above the capital city were lit with shimmering displays of energy, symbolizing gratitude and celebration. Children waved, adults bowed, and the council presented the humans with medallions representing unity, courage, and resilience. Lieutenant Tavares looked at the crowd. This is what matters, he said. Not recognition, but knowing that we made a difference, that we gave them tools, skills, and hope to survive whatever comes next. Dr. Shah added, and they will remember that courage and ingenuity matter as much as any technology. That's a lesson no solar flare can erase. Finally, the Endurance prepared for departure. The crew gathered on the observation deck one last time, gazing at the planet they had saved. It was no longer just a distant world in need. It was a testament to collaboration, courage, and the human spirit. Commander Elena reflected on the journey. We answered a call when others refused. We faced dangers no other species dared confront, and in doing so we've left a mark that will endure. That is humanity's gift. We survive, we adapt, and we bring hope when hope seems lost. As the ship lifted off, the Aelorians waved, their gratitude evident in every gesture. The humans were no longer strangers, they were heroes, teachers, and friends. Across the galaxy their actions would ripple outward, reaching civilizations that had long underestimated Earth's Deathworlders. Back on Earth, news of the mission spread quickly. Reports highlighted not just the technological achievements but the courage, ingenuity, and teamwork that had made them possible. Children studied the mission in schools, engineers and scientists analyzed the methods, and leaders across the planet celebrated humanity's ability to act decisively and effectively in the face of the impossible. Across the galaxy, other civilizations began to take notice. The humans of Earth were known as survivalists, adventurers, and above all, problem solvers. Their reputation as Deathworlders, once a warning, was now a badge of honor. They had survived challenges on a harsh homeworld, faced cosmic dangers, and emerged victorious. And in doing so, they had shown that no challenge was too great when humans were involved. On Aeloria, life slowly returned to normal. Cities thrived under the reinforced energy grids, forest recovered from damage, and the people carried forward the lessons learned from the humans. Even as they continued to study and advance their technology, they never forgot the courage, adaptability, and ingenuity that had saved them. Commander Elena looked at her crew as they prepared for the journey home. Each member had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident in their abilities. They had faced cosmic storms, unstable stars, and the unknown perils of another civilization, and had succeeded. Our mission was more than saving a planet, she said. It was about showing what humanity can do. The universe will always have dangers, but humans will always rise to face them. That is our legacy. As the Endurance departed Aeloria's orbit, the planet appeared smaller, yet its light was steady and strong. The humans had left a permanent impact, not in monuments or materials, but in knowledge, courage, and resilience. The bond between Earth and Aeloria would endure, a symbol of what could be achieved when beings work together, guided by determination and ingenuity. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to humanity's journey. Yet this time the silence was different. The galaxy had seen the power of humans, not the strength of their ships, not the reach of their technology, but the strength of their spirit. A species forged on a death world had traveled to another world, faced the impossible, and emerged victorious. Somewhere in the minds of the crew, a quiet sense of fulfillment lingered. They had saved lives, inspired a civilization, and proven once again what humans could achieve. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often indifferent, but humans had answered its call. Where others hesitated, humans acted. Where others failed, humans endured. Where others doubted, humans triumphed. And so, the Endurance sailed onward, carrying with it the lessons, courage, and hope that would define Earth's legacy among the stars. The mission to Aeloria was complete, but the story of humanity's resilience was just beginning. Across the galaxy, whispers of the Deathworlders' bravery would spread, and wherever life was threatened, wherever hope was scarce, humans would answer, undaunted, adaptable, and unyielding. Aeloria would thrive. Humanity had proven that courage and ingenuity could turn the tide against even the most overwhelming cosmic dangers. And as the crew looked toward the endless expanse of stars, they knew that this was only the beginning of what humans could achieve among the galaxies. The universe had called, and humanity had answered, not for glory, not for recognition, but because it was in their nature to survive, to adapt, and to bring hope where none existed. And that legacy would endure, long after the Endurance had left Aeloria's orbit.